Yes, Cristiano, are you feeling more and more confident with each game?
No, I understand.
You'll have to excuse my friend. We're dealing with limited English here. What he meant to say was...
Muchas gracias, afición.
Cheers, Gary. Absolutely nailed that. Wait a minute, what? The English Premier League is the most popular football league in the world. I think we've all pretty much accepted that by now. And there are probably a whole host of reasons for why this is the case. Is it the fast, breakneck speed of games? Is it the insanely high level of broadcasting coverage and production? Or is it the mountains upon mountains of money? I'll let you all be the judge. The league in its current form began all the way back in 1992, and ever since then has only gotten bigger and bigger. And something that coincided with this growth and soon became a key contributing factor to the league's success was the introduction of foreign players, managers, and personalities en masse. Now, foreign players and managers did exist in English football before the formation of the EPL, and for clarity, I am also including the Greater United Kingdom other than England in the foreigner category. But as soon as the 90s hit, the non-English and non-British influence went into overdrive. Don't believe me? How about this? The longest standing of the three major Player of the Year awards, the Football Writers Association Footballer of the Year, has been around since 1948. Between its inception and 1992, 62% of winners were English. Since 1992, that number has been almost halved to 34%. Same goes for the PFA Players Player of the Year award, dropping from 60% between 1974 and 1992 to 24% after that. And the Premier League Player of the Season award, starting in 1994, is even worse. Only 22% of winners have been English. Not enough? Okay. Between 1888, when the English Football League began, and 1992, the year before the Premier League was launched, 65 out of the 95 winning managers were English. The remainder were Scottish and Irish. However, since 1992, zero. Not one Englishman has managed a Premier League winning team. Of course, the Scottish winning streak persisted, but that's only because, and one more thing. At the time of making this video, 65% of EPL managers are foreign, and only one out of the current top 10 teams in the league is English. And he's sitting in 10th. We'll get into ownership of EPL clubs a bit later in the video, but for now, I'm sure you all get the idea. The offshore influence is massive. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at some of the key factors that led to the foreign invasion of English football, highlight why this is a good thing, and also talk about why it possibly isn't. With that being said, what's going on? And how did we get here? Yo, what is going on everyone? Hope you're all doing well. I'm Tinashe, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. No player profile, no team profile, just something that I've been incredibly interested in for, I would say, decades now. The impact of foreigners on the English Premier League. I feel like I have to preface this video by saying these are just observations and based on actual statistics and reports. There's no malice or agenda behind anything I'm saying, and I hope I don't come across that way. If I do, please let me know in the comments. I'll see it. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's start this one off with a look at the landscape for foreign footballers in England before the 90s. Foreign, non-British footballers have been plying their trade in England for a lot longer than you might think. All the way back in 1892, a Canadian man by the name of Walter Bosman laced up for Accrington Stanley in the league. From all sources I could find, this is the first foreigner to enter the English top flight, but he certainly wasn't the last, and he definitely wasn't the best. Today's story begins all the way back in 1931. Like I said, non-English players had already been kicking about in the league at this point, and there weren't that many of them. Regardless, it was this year that the Football Association decided that enough was enough. They introduced a ruling that stated that players had to have lived in the United Kingdom for at least 2 years before they were eligible to play for an English club. There were some exceptions, such as students, prisoners of war, amateurs, and so on and so forth, but they were just that. Exceptions. I feel the idea of bringing foreigners to play in league football is repulsive to the clubs, offensive to British players, and a terrible confession of weakness in the management of a club. These were the words of Charles Sutcliffe, chairman of Burnley and the president of the Football League back when this ruling was made. And these comments were pretty much met with unanimous agreement, which really tells you all you really need to know about the sentiment surrounding foreigners back then and opening up the doors to the league. Fast forward 47 years, and in 1978, changes to labour laws by what would soon become the EU meant that countries were no longer able to deny players access to the league based on their nationality. And with the English FA following suit, Tottenham Hotspur immediately took advantage of this new ruling, signing Argentines Osvaldo Ardiles and Ricardo Villa, both winners of the recent 1978 World Cup and hot property at the time, if we're being honest. If players like these were available today, the best teams in the world would be after them. So, hats off to Spurs. As you could probably guess, these two were brought in under some pretty intense scrutiny from many in the public. The ghost of Charles Sutcliffe was alive and thriving in the hearts of many, but they ended up being adored at Spurs, helping them to 2 FA Cups while they were there. Ardiles was objectively better by most accounts, but that's not what this video is about. Also, I wasn't there, so can't confirm. Foreign players started pouring in, but that was halted somewhat due to English football's ban from European competition following the Hazel disaster in 1985. But from 1991, the foreign invasion was in full swing. The early 90s and the start of the Premier League meant several things. Number 1, bucket loads of money. At a glance, here is a chart courtesy of Statista, which details the growth of overall revenue of the big 5 leagues in the world between 1996 and 2022. As we can see, the Premier League absolutely torches the rest. There is no contest. Exclusive TV deals, an increase in merchandising initiatives, and overall increased brand recognition meant that the clubs in the Premier League had more money than they knew what to do with. The likes of Eric Cantona, Peter Schmeichel, and Bruce Grobbelaar had been around before the start of the EPL, but it wasn't until 1996 that the true foreign revolution came about. And it was largely thanks to this guy, Jean-Marc Bosman. Okay, so this is kind of a story within a story, so it might seem like I'm being derailed, but trust me, this is a very, very important moment in football history and I had to include it. Bosman was a former Belgian international who, like a lot of people in the working world, got shafted. But he wasn't having it. Back in 1995, his contract with Belgian side RFC Liège had expired and he was looking to move. The only problem was that back then, if a player was out of contract and a team wanted to sign them, the buying team would still have to pay a transfer fee to the player's former club. When no team was willing to pay the fee and Liège refused to let him leave, instead chopping his wages down by 75%, he sued RFC Liège, the Belgian FA and UEFA, and fought for the right to move once out of contract. And he won. According to that ruling, out-of-contract players were then allowed to move to clubs of their choice on free transfers, and clubs were allowed to sign any number of EU players. Every European footballer in the history of ever after him needs to be thanking this man. Running down of contracts to get better signing-on bonuses would not be possible without the contributions that this man made to the game. This man truly put power in the hands of players in a game that was massively not in their favor for several decades. A sentiment all the more meaningful due to the fact that his life has reportedly not been so great since this momentous ruling. He struggled to find work after winning the case, went bankrupt, and suffered through addictions. But what he did in standing up to the big boys has made many players after him rich beyond their wildest dreams. Again, foreign inclusion was already a thing before this, but the Bosman ruling did nothing but fan the flame, for players and managers, it seems. And so the era of firsts came about. First non-British manager to win the FA Cup, Ruud Gullit, 1997. First non-British manager to win the league and the double, Arsene Wenger, 1998. First completely foreign starting 11, Chelsea, Boxing Day, 1999. And with all the firsts, there was a last all English starting 11, Aston Villa, January 1999. No team has repeated this feat in the Premier League to this day. Times are changing. Which brings us to today. International TV deals, more merchandising, sponsorships, and expanding markets have done nothing but inflate revenue for the league. And if you're a young budding footballer, almost by default, the Premier League is a dream destination. Not only are the top teams always in contention for domestic and continental silverware, 2 all-English UCL finals in the past 3 years tells you just that, but the potential pay is otherworldly. I mean, where else can you find a relegation-threatened team in 17th place paying up to £120,000 per week? It's crazy. Manchester City and Liverpool are by far and away the 2 best teams in England at the moment. This was the lineup in their most recent Premier League clash. Notice anything? That's right, 16 out of the 22 players that started this match were not English, and 4 out of the 5 players that were substituted on were also not English. So it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that, according to Transfermarkt, 329 of the 502 players registered for the 21-22 Premier League season are foreign. I actually thought it would be more, if I'm honest. Okay, a bit of an information overload, I'm sorry about that. But at this point, you're probably thinking, well, what's stopping a team from only signing non-English players, seeing as they all like to do that so much? It certainly looks like that's the direction we're going in, right? Well, there is the homegrown player rule, a ruling that states that out of the 25-man squad selected at the start of the season for any given team, only 17 are allowed to be non-homegrown, i.e. foreign. Sounds pretty good, right? But the thing is, for a player to be considered homegrown, they only need to be on the books for an English or Welsh FA associated club for 3 years before they turn 21. So basically, Paul Pogba, a very French man and World Cup winner with France, he's homegrown. Cesc Fabregas, a Spanish man and also a World Cup winner, also homegrown. Victor Moses, Romelu Lukaku, the list goes on. As is the case for just about every dilemma in this crazy world, there are loopholes. And to just add one more note to the status quo, at the time of this video's release, any guesses on how many Premier League teams are English owned by majority ownership? If your answer was 5, you'd be right. 75% of Premier League teams have non-English owners. Wild stats, I know. But as always, all sources for everything in this video and everything on this channel are in the description. So we've got all the information out the way and we're all on the same page. So now we're left with a few questions, concerns, and things to ponder. Okay, so this part of the video is mostly my own thoughts as an observer. I'll preface by saying I'm not English, so perhaps my words don't hold that much weight. But then again, this is my channel, so I'm gonna say them anyway. Is the inclusion of foreigners a bad thing? From a purely football perspective, absolutely not. The EPL is the most metropolitan league in the world. The quality on display, the global fandom, the ecosystem, all of it is, at this point, near impossible to replicate. Actually, not near. It is impossible. As far as the spectacle goes, this can only be a good thing. This extends to TV deals and every other revenue stream which allow teams to continually improve and invest. Without the international players and personalities, the interest from international audiences would probably still be there, I'll admit that much, but I strongly believe that it would be nowhere near as strong as it is today. I mean, ask any Egyptian on Twitter. If you don't believe me when I talk about the significance of the international audience, consider that in the 2020-21 season, revenue from overseas TV deals equated to roughly 45% of the total TV deal income for the league. That's roughly £1.3 billion. And as of next season, that figure will be 50%. Just a quick shout out to the Swiss Ramble who I've sourced this information from. He's linked below, go ahead and give him a follow on Twitter. He does some incredible work and research if you're interested in the finances of major football leagues. And while you're at it, also follow me. Why not, right? Just jumping back to the spectacle, the inclusion of foreign managers and influencers has surely done a great deal in aiding the growth and development of several players in the league, particularly when it comes to young English players. I see the likes of Phil Foden and Raheem Sterling especially, who've improved significantly under Pep Guardiola. Reece James, Mason Mount and more under Thomas Tuchel, Harry Kane and Kyle Walker under Mauricio Pochettino, with the latter also under Guardiola. The list goes on and stretches all the way back to Jose Mourinho in his first stint, Rafa Benitez at Liverpool, and of course, Arsene Wenger. In terms of the here and now, of course Gareth Southgate deserves a lot of praise and credit for what he's done with the national team. But I don't think anyone can argue that a lot of these current players have benefited greatly from a foreign influence and taken that back with them to the national team setup. Now on to the potential negatives of foreign inclusion. One thing that many may point out is that the influx of foreigners stunts the growth and opportunities of locals. If someone comes in, someone has to be left out, right? That's quick maths for you. One way to look at this is that this is good because it ensures that only the best of the best English talent makes it through. That's one end of the spectrum. But on the other end, Some may say that this phenomenon lowers the patience that teams have and robs budding players of the opportunity to grow and make mistakes. I can see and fully understand the arguments from both sides of the spectrum, and I'm sure there are many, many more. And I can honestly say I'm a little bit on the fence of which one I'm aligned with. They both make sense. So maybe you guys can help me out and let me know what you think in the comments. And finally, the ownership of Premier League clubs. Need I say more? Several club owners have pretty much shown time and time again that they prioritize squeezing as much money out of the fans as possible. All of this while taking more and more out and putting less and less in. And the fact that it seems for all intents and purposes that certain Big Six club owners are 1. Foreign, and 2. Probably not even football fans makes it even worse. And the ones that are fans or at least show an interest in the sports either have shady pasts or are constantly being accused of sports washing. It's all a bit of a mess. These are just my opinions. I've been wrong before and I'll definitely be wrong again. And I think that's where we're going to leave this one. I had a ton of fun putting this one together, and I definitely want to do more research, deep dive type pieces in the future for all the leagues. But before any of that, let me know what you guys thought about A, this video, and B, the colonization of the Premier League. And that is all for me today. Really hope you guys enjoyed. Really hope you stay safe and have a great day. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.